Welcome to another edition of the Outstanding People podcast. And I'm going to start by saying you're welcome, because this episode is all about sex. All your burning questions about sex are about to be answered. We have Dr. Tiffanie Davis Henry on the program. She is a sex therapist. She is also an intimacy coordinator with the film and television industry. She is a TV host and entrepreneur, and she also happens to be a friend of mine. There is no better person to talk sex with than Dr. Tiff. We get into all of it, from better sex for couples, better sex for singles, how to talk to your children about sex. We get into sex toys. We hit everything. So sit back, enjoy the podcast. I had a lot of fun in this conversation.
Right. Hi.
Hi. And for everybody listening, I have the wonderful Dr. Tiffanie Davis Henry on my podcast. She is a dear friend, a TV host, a sex therapist, and she is an on-set coordinator, which we're going to get into, on-set sex coordinator, which we're going to get into. She's an entrepreneur. She wears many hats, but she is so lovely, and I'm so grateful that she's on the show. So welcome to the podcast, Dr. Tiff.
Thank you. Thank you, Slade. Do you remember when we first met?
I do. We were working on a show called All About Sex.
Nope.
No, we
met. We met on Steve Harvey, I believe, in Chicago.
No, we did All About Sex before then.
Was it in Chicago?
No, we did all.
You weren't in Chicago.
Well, we were in Chicago. I was in Chicago.
I met you in Chicago the first time, and then All About Sex. I believe that to be true. Mm-hmm. I do.
No,
I believe that to be true. I knew you before All About Sex.
No, it's not, because I did All About Sex prior to going to Steve Harvey in Chicago, and that's when I first.
Are you
I wouldn't have forgotten you.
I feel like it was the other way around. I feel like I met you at Steve Harvey and then re-met you during All About Sex. I'm going to have to check. We'll check the date on that.
Check the facts. But to your point, we have worked together several times. One of them being at Steve Harvey. You were a lovely guest on the show. And then All About Sex, we worked. It was a late night talk show on TLC. You were one of the hosts.
That was a wild ride.
That was a wild ride. You know, I was thinking, because, you know, as you were coming on, I was just thinking about that show, and two things came up. One, do you remember? Well, when I first got there, there was another EP on the show.
Yes, there was.
I guess they got rid of. They called me to come in. I probably had no business coming in and being the EP of that show, because Ellen Rakatan, who was the creator and EP of that show, she was really pulling all the strings. I don't know why I was there, but I was. But my one contribution to the show is, and I don't know if you know this, is that we were doing an episode with your sex toys.
Yes.
And we went to go do the episode, and they were missing from the office. I don't know if the staff took them home or whatever it was. And in my background, I came from TMZ. So I made a little call over to TMZ, and I don't know if you ever saw the story that was posted on TMZ that said, All About Sex execs want their sex toys back.
Oh my gosh, no. We made it to TMZ. I had no idea.
Yeah. When you get a chance, look it up, or I'll send you the link. But it's
so funny. That is super funny, because I remember I have this wonderful photo, and if I can find, I'm sure I know it's on my computer actually, from that episode that I'm going to send you. And it's me sitting with Heather McDonald next to Heather, and I'm holding up Benoit balls in my hand, and she is looking at me like, what is that? Like, why would you need that? But I'm going to send that photo to you so that you have it for, because you need it. Everybody
I will frame it. It'll go up on my wall.
It's so amazing.
The video that they put up on TMZ was you were discussing a vibrator with the rest of the women on the panel.
I was on TMZ and I did not know it.
You were on TMZ? Yeah.
The fuck?
I know.
I wish I had known that. How could you keep that information from me?
I thought everybody knew.
I made it.
No, I take that back. I didn't tell anybody because I didn't want them to know that I was the source that leaked that information. But as the new EP coming in, I thought it would be great publicity for a new show that was coming out. So
I mean, too little, too late, because we got 6 episodes, I think.
We got 6 episodes. Yeah.
Yeah. And I really enjoyed my time on that show. I think you and I, in our pre-interview, we talked and I told you I have a story about that show of something that happened that you don't know about for me in that show. But I really, really enjoyed my time there. I really enjoyed that show. And I thought that it could have been so much more had we had, I mean, this is just TV in general, right? When shows don't get another season or more episodes, it's like, gosh, we had so much more to do. But that was such a highlight in my hosting career. I really, really enjoyed that. And occasionally I will look at little, clips that I have, and I miss that show. It was so much fun.
It was a great show, and there still is a need for it, right? It's like,
I think so.
And that's why I wanted to have you on the podcast, because, sex is such a taboo subject, right? And it's such a misunderstood subject. And I think we get it wrong a lot, and we're afraid to ask the right questions. I mean, look, I'll be the first to admit, even just, I'm a little nervous having you on right now.
Why?
Because it's just talking.
This is the trusting tree.
I know. Well, yeah, with you, I feel comfortable. But my mom listens to this podcast.
Hey, Mama. Mom had a 80th birthday?
She did. Yeah, she just had her 80th. Yeah, we went down to Key West. We took her down to Key West, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of that does start at home. Bringing up your mom is perfect, because that's where our comfort levels with sex and sexuality and all of these conversations start. If you are having, and this is one of my little soapbox items, as we talk about sex education and who should be educating our kids, what we have to understand is that those conversations start super early, way earlier than we think they should. With the average American kid starting puberty at about age 8 or 9, we have to start those conversations a lot earlier, because we want them to have whatever information they need before they need to have it. Right. But what tends to happen, and what has happened with us historically, is that we don't have those conversations. We become nervous as adults having those conversations with our children, and they grow up to be adult humans who then continue to perpetuate that. They continue to not be comfortable with having those conversations.
100%.
Yeah. 100%. So, the goal really does have to be, and I'm not saying you say, the nastiest, vilest, freakiest things to your 4-year-old. But
you don't just come out of the gate strong.
Yeah. But your kids
hey, let's talk anal sex.
Absolutely. They should be comfortable with at least the terminology of their genitalia. Like, that's something that you can get, the language that you can give them, because what you want is that if anyone does something inappropriate to them, you want them to A, feel comfortable enough to tell you, B, be comfortable enough to be very exact. This is exactly what happened. This is exactly where this person touched me. These are the things that were going on. You don't want them to be uncomfortable or ashamed to tell someone that can actually help them resolve whatever issue, or even report an issue.
No, it's a great point. It's a great point. It's an important point. So what would you say is the appropriate age then to start having that conversation?
Well, conversations. So there's a series of conversations. It's not just one and done. So that's kind of the first thing, is that this is an ongoing.
You can't just be like, hey, this is your vagina. Okay, we're done. We're done.
Yeah. And we know, because we know that kids' short attention spans, they hear one thing and then their mind goes a million places, right? So it's a repeat conversation, and it's also an age appropriate conversation. So we have conversations as they're young about what their body parts are. So as you're talking with your toddler about, their nose, their ears, their eyes, it's okay, I think, for them to know, okay, this is my penis, this is my vagina. That might be all of the conversation that you need to have with someone who is 18 months, 2 years, 3 years old. As they get older, though, we build on that. We build on the things. We start talking about good touch and bad touch. We start talking about where babies come from, and then we start talking about how the babies got there, and, as they get older, so that when they do reach puberty, these things it's two things. So that when they do reach puberty, they kind of already know how all of the plumbing works, right? Sure. But also, we're arming them with all of the information they need in order to make good decisions, right? So it's an ongoing conversation. You want to get in there early though, because as a parent, our kids, there comes a time when they think we don't know anything.
Oh,
when they think we're stupid.
I have
when
an
they think that
yeah, she's definitely thinks she's smarter than me.
Absolutely. So the sweet spot is before that period of time, right? When they still think you know everything. Oh, so start giving them information when you're, yeah. Well, listen, as a parent, we all mess up at some point, right? And we keep messing up. We don't know what we don't know either, really. Yeah, it's true. Just we kind of play it like we do. But yeah, the goal is really to tell them this information when they still think we're smart, when they still think we hung the moon, so that they will feel comfortable engaging with us and asking us questions and coming to us when something doesn't quite work. My daughter, one thing that I'm confident in, she's 8 years old. And when we did All About Sex, I had just had her. Maybe she was 5 months old, but wow. She can come to my husband and say like, I think she had a UTI or something a few weeks ago. And she was just like, she went to my husband to tell him about it as opposed to coming to me. And I was like, well, why she go to you? And he's just like, I don't know. But she was just like, it hurts when I pee. And, which is something that happens to little girls. I mean, it happens to little girls and boys, but
it's
girls
great
a little
that
bit
she
more,
was comfortable. It's great that she was comfortable enough to go to your husband and say that. Yesterday, so my wife is sick right now, so she's in the room laid up, and my daughter, she's gonna kill me for saying this. My daughter,
we can edit this out. It's fine.
Yeah, my daughter comes to me with an empty box of pads, right? And she's like, I need these pads. I'm trying to be cool as the dad. I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm just thinking like, okay, what do I do? What do I do? Do I go to the store? How do I, and then there's numbers on them. I'm like, oh, there's number. Like what numbers do I get?
God. Oh my God. Oh my God. But that is really cool. That means you're doing a great job. The fact that she could, cause I don't know that I would have ever asked my dad. I always asked my mom. I felt like as a teenager, my dad was vaguely aware that I had a period, but only because he had to change the garbage. Like he just always took the trash out and stuff. So I'm like, oh God, he knows, but that's the extent of we never had a conversation about my period. I never asked him to buy anything. I think I started working at a grocery store when I was 15. So then I never had to ask anybody to buy me anything. I would go and get it myself.
Just get it.
But yeah, so this is huge. At 11, if she's asking you, you've done a good job.
Oh, that's good. That's good to know. Good.
You've done a good job.
I always hope. I mean,
you haven't messed her up too bad.
No, not too bad. But I do. I always hope that she feels comfortable enough to come to me and, ask me for the same things she would ask her mother about. And, and I try not to freak out when she asks me.
Try not to freak out, but it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Speaking of freaking out, so I'm getting ready to do this podcast and I'm, just looking online, just seeing, different things, where you've been, what you've been doing. And I come across you're on Kiki Palmer's podcast. And I glanced down at the title and it's butt play for the straight guy. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, what am I getting myself into?
Well, listen, she interviewed me. Okay. I didn't interview her. She interviewed me. And what you're getting into is something that it's happening out here in these streets, Slade. It's happening, whether you want to acknowledge it. And we actually talked about that on All About Sex too. It was ahead of its time.
It was ahead of its time. That's right.
It was ahead of its time. But anal sex play is something that for straight men, they've long denied and or avoided the subject. So it might have been something that they were curious about and or thought only people who are in same-sex relationships do this. Right. So because I'm straight, I don't. It's a lot of taboo around anal play or anal sex and all of that. And so we had a conversation about a lot of things. That was kind of the headline though. And, I gave some tips. It's a great podcast for any of your listeners that, after they finish this one, if they'd like to understand a little more about butt play and anal sex.
No, it actually was. It was a great conversation. I listened to it. It was a great conversation, really good information. I was thrown by the title. I was like, oh my gosh, am I going to have to now live up to anal play for the straight guy.
Cheeky partner. Yeah. A lot of pressure here, a lot of pressure. No pun intended. But
yeah. Well, let me ask you this, because
it's in the repertoire.
It's in the. Let me ask you this: for people listening that don't know, what does a sex therapist do? Because obviously you have a wealth of information about sex in general and couples, things like that. But if you can kind of just break down, what does a sex therapist do?
So I think the first thing to understand is I specialize in sex therapy. I am a psychotherapist who specializes in sexuality, sex-related issues, sexual dysfunction, all of that. So it's also important to understand that because sex therapy is a certification, anybody could call themselves a sex therapist. So you want to make sure that the person that you're seeing for sex therapy is actually trained in sex. You could call yourself a sex therapist.
I can. I am now a sex therapist.
You could. Don't really know that I would want to go see you for that service.
Believe me, all my information would be incorrect.
Okay. So what you want to do if you're looking for someone who specializes in sexuality issues or is a sex therapist is you want to make sure, A, that they have a mental health background and a degree. So my bachelor's degree and my master's degree are both in psychology. So I'm a trained psychotherapist. I'm a licensed psychotherapist. So you want to make sure that they're licensed for mental health counseling. And then that they've taken additional courses and done the coursework to really train and hone in their skills as an expert in the area of sexuality, sex and sexuality. So my doctorate is in human sexuality from Widener University, which is one of the only, one of the very few doctoral programs in human sexuality. And so they train in the area of sexuality education as well as therapy, sex therapy. And so that was the track that I did and did practicums, internships, all of that kind of stuff around it. And I've been doing the thing for over a decade, I think.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's been a minute. You have been amazing. You've like I said, you're a TV host. You're a guest on a lot of different shows, giving great advice. You're doing it. And then a little bit later, we're going to get into what you're doing now with on-set sex coordination, which I think is really cool. But I do want to ask you, so as a sex therapist, who are your clients? Who are the people are they singles, couples, older, younger? Is it the whole gamut?
It's a little bit. Yeah, it's a whole gamut, a wide range. So I personally don't work with too many teens. Most of my clients are adults. There are some sex therapists who may work with teens, but usually that is, it could be coming out issues. It could be trauma issues. It could just be, figuring things out or how to talk to my parents or how my parents should talk to me about sexuality related things. I mostly work with adults. I work with men and women or individuals who identify as men and women. I also I work with individuals who are identify as LGBT. I work with young couples. I work with singles. Some people are in relationships. Some people are out of relationship. Maybe they're trying to figure out why their past relationships haven't worked before they get into a new relationship. Sure. So it really does run the gamut, and you don't have to be in a relationship to see a sex therapist. And I'll say this, while you want to, if you are having some sort of sexuality or sexual functioning issue, there's always a three-pronged approach that I kind of use to figure out where we're going with the problem, whatever the identified problem is, the problem that you're coming in with. So I'm looking physiologically to see if there's something medically wrong that could be causing it. And those things I don't deal with because I'm a psychotherapist. Sure. I'm not a medical doctor. So I'm forwarding you to maybe your GYN or your urologist or your PCP to get labs or to make sure that medically things are going on correctly. And if not, that they can course correct where that needs to happen. Some instances where that might be an appropriate referral would be if someone's on some medications that maybe is causing them to have erectile dysfunction. there's nothing that I can do to help you with erectile functioning if medications that you are taking that you need to take for, let's say, blood pressure or diabetes, I can't do anything about that. I need you to see the person that's prescribing those medications to see if there's something that you can get for those side effects, right? I'm also looking at the psychological aspect, and that's where the mental health background comes in. So if someone has severe anxiety and is also, or someone is, let's say anxiety, right? And they're having a difficulty relaxing during sex. Those two things are related. Relaxing enough to be able to have, let's say, orgasms. Those things can be related. So we want to make sure that we address the psychological concern so that we can then address the sexual concern.
Yeah, because a lot of times I would imagine it's mental, right? You just get in your own head and you have to. A
lot of times it is, especially with things like orgasm.
Mm-hmm. Really?
It's a very, because with orgasm, you have to be able to relax enough and let go enough in order to be able. That's what orgasm is.
Female, right? Or male?
Female and male. But I do see a lot of women who indicate that having issues with orgasm. Number one question that I ask is are you having trouble orgasming by yourself? Or is it just with your partner? Because sometimes orgasming is fine with their toy. It's when they're having sex with their partner that the orgasm is trouble. So that in and of itself tells me, okay, the functioning is fine.
Yeah.
Your body's working fine. I don't need to do that medical referral because you can do it. It's just that something's different with your partner.
So how does that go then when a couple comes in to see you? Does ego get in the way? Because I guess no one wants to admit that they're the problem, right? Or
it certainly can. And ego gets in the way on the phone call to me.
How so?
It gets well when I have, let's say, a male partner saying, "Hey, I'd like sex therapy for my wife. She needs to come see you."
Oh.
I usually say, you know what, both of you need to come in.
Yeah. It's not me, it's her.
Yeah, and that's true with couples, right? We don't live in a relationship by ourselves. Sometimes it's what you're doing or not doing that could be contributing to the problem. So for me, it's important that both people in that couple come in and have conversation and we can communicate, because sometimes it's that this thing that you're doing is turning me off.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm not getting turned on. It's not just that my sex drive is lower than yours. It's that every time you come to bed, you have spinach in your teeth and your breath smells like garlic and you haven't bathed in 3 days. It's not that my sex drive is low. It's that you're funky and nasty and I need you to take a bath.
Right.
Well, sometimes you're with sex drive and stuff like that, not to cut you off, but sometimes it's working just fine.
Mm-hmm.
And you need someone to tell you that there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you wanting to have sex 1 to 2 times a week.
Right.
It's the fact that you're partnered with someone that wants to have it 8 to 10.
Right.
If you're partnered with someone that wants it more than you, they can sometimes make you feel as though you're the one with the problem when really it's a very normal thing. You just are different. People have different desires. So it's so many things. And that's why it's important when there is a sexual issue in relationship that both people come in, because I need to understand the dynamics of the couple in order to understand how that issue has become an issue.
Of course. And I was going to ask you then, and it sounds like it's very important. How important is a pre-sex conversation or to be able to communicate with your partner? Because and I'm guilty of it too, where sometimes you just don't have the conversation, then you assume there's something wrong, or when I guess it can easily be resolved if you just say, hey, I like this, or I don't like this, or whatever it may be. But how important is that?
And so that goes back, it's so important. And that goes back to really, I think, the first thing that we talked about, kind of how we were raised, having these difficult conversations or these uncomfortable conversations. If this is something that you have just all of your life been very comfortable talking about, hey, I don't, this isn't something that I like, or I would like it when you do this, or don't like it, then you're more apt to bring up those things prior to us getting in the bedroom. Most folks wait until something happens and then decide they don't like it. And rather than tell their partner that they don't like it, they either muscle through it or they avoid it. And then it turns into what looks like low sex desire, when really I just don't like that thing you do when we're in bed, but I won't tell you about it. I'll just say I have a headache, or I'll turn over, or I'll pretend to be asleep, or all of these things, right?
And what's so funny is that most partners can tell when their partner is lying, and you're just like, oh my God, I know you don't have a headache. Like, what is it?
Yeah. You were just bopping to some music a few minutes ago. Now you got a headache. Really? Okay, girl.
Man. Well,
yeah. So we know. And so if we could just be honest, and usually, and this is why it's so important that your sex therapist has a mental health background, right?
Yeah.
Because they'll be able to deal with the depression around, or the anxiety around, or the stress that's going on in your life, and all of the things that are keeping you from being sexually available in your relationship.
Yeah. Well, yes, all of that. And I think part of the problem too, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but you probably hear this in your sessions, is that people have an unrealistic idea of what sex is because porn is so prevalent. Nowadays we have computers and our tablets and our phones, and it's so accessible that
for sure,
And
I actually see this a lot with younger people, younger more than old, because I think that they have grown up with porn in a way that we just didn't. It's so accessible to them on their phones, on their laptops, on their tablets. They can hide it. It's not, I think when we were younger, it was more so, you had to do a pay-per-view in order to see it, which meant you had to be able to access money in a way that, we just didn't have as kids. You had to go to a store and you had to be 18 to buy this magazine, and then you hid the magazine, and then it ended up like all of the things the stars really did have to align.
You can do like I did and just watch the Playboy channel. But if you didn't actually buy it, it had that line through it, and you just try to squint your eye and maybe I could see something.
Exactly. But now it's just like, you don't even have to go searching for it. It's there. And so what we find with young men and women is they both have unrealistic expectations of what sex should be like, of what pleasure is, of how they should behave, of what sexual response looks like. And their expectations have really, they've elevated in a way where they are consistently let down. We also have a generation of young people that are taking things like Viagra and Cialis in order to last longer, because they think that that's the expectation because of what they're seeing in porn. When in reality, erections generally last during sex about 7 minutes. I think that's the average. So they're expecting a 30-minute show, when really nobody needs that. I'm here to tell you, I don't need That's a long time.
You don't want me going all night long?
Listen. No. I don't need all of that. But it's that it's the mentality and the thought that what I see on TV must be how things are supposed to go. Yeah. And I should be enjoying it the same way as the girl on the screen. I should be, my erection should last as long as the man on the screen. And none of that, all of that is manufactured. And people have to realize that that's not real. And so, in addition to that, we've also have young people that have grown up not talking, not communicating verbally, but texting. Yeah. And so when they have to sit in front of someone and have a conversation, the skill level is very low. And so it makes it a little bit more challenging and difficult to actually, initiate relationships and to keep them going for longer periods of time.
Absolutely. So, and it's tough because, and again, it goes back to having that conversation with your parents, although that would probably be a difficult conversation to have. But where do you learn what normal sex is, right? Because if your parent's not talking to you, if you're only watching porn, I mean, God, I feel bad for kids today. They're going to be so screwed up. And like you said, I mean, you try to get into a relationship, and if you're not living up to those expectations, you feel like you're doing something wrong. It's horrible.
It is. And I think that's where community is important too, right? We learn a lot, as I'm sure you have, you learn a lot about sex, not only from what you see on television and in magazines, you learn from your friends, and you learn through experience. A lot of what we understand about what we like and dislike is based on experience, something that we had before that we don't ever want to have again. Yeah. In my next relationship, not doing that because I didn't like it the first, second, and third time. I'm not going to continue to put myself through that. But I also have to be able, once I learn what I do like, to articulate that to my partner, because people aren't mind readers.
Yeah.
I can assume based on your body movement and a moan and a groan or something, right, that you liked what I was just doing. But
either that or you're disgusted.
Either that or they're disgusted. But a better way would be to tell your partner, hey, when you do this, amen. Like, bravo. I love it. Right. People need to know that so that they can continue to do it.
I was gonna ask you about that. Do women like guys to talk during sex? Or like,
here's the thing. Some do. So it depends how you learn about all of this. Like, it's so individualized. Right. And I think that's what, if I had to give kind of a tip for people, is to not assume that because your previous partner loved it does not mean that your current partner is going to love it. A lot of people go into relationship thinking, oh, well, this kills them every time. Every time that I do this is my number one move. Well, until you get with a person that is just like, meh, that
has happened to me. Yeah, that has happened to me, where I'm like, I went into a relationship where I was like, man, this move, this was it. Like, they love this. And all of a sudden they're like, what do you do? That hurts. Like, what are you doing? And I'm like, what do you mean that hurts? Like, every girl loves that. And then,
so something's now wrong with her because this didn't work. When it can't be. But in actuality, listen, everybody is different, and what works for some does not necessarily work for all. What turns you on may turn another person off. So that's why communication is important. That's why we have to have these conversations. And that's why people end up in my office, because they don't necessarily, they know that there's something that needs to be said, and they don't know exactly how to say it, or they're afraid to say it because they don't want to hurt their partner's feelings or something like that.
Are there things that in your sessions that either the woman or the man will that you've heard repeatedly that say, okay, well, this is something that women don't like, or from the guy's perspective, this is something guys don't like? Is there something in general that the other is doing to that person where you hear like, man, this always happens, but I don't like it when they do this? Or is it just individualized for different people?
I would say it's individualized, but I think it's, I think one of the things that is very common, I think, I'm thinking this through as I'm saying it. One of the things that is super common is for people to have different expectations in terms of desire. Or not even expectations in terms of desire, but just have different desires. Most people don't come into relationship at the same level of sexual desire. And so what that does, let's say my desire is normal and normal is here. Yeah. And my partner's desire is high, right? My partner may feel like, wow, your sex desire is so low. It's super low. Like, we never have sex. We only have sex when you want to. It's super low. When in actuality, their desire is pretty normal. And this person is actually a high desire person. Yeah. And so this person starts to feel like, wow, my desire is low. Like, I just don't want to have sex that much. And maybe they don't, like I said, maybe they only want to have sex once or twice a week, which is very normal.
Yeah.
Maybe they only want to have sex once or twice a week, but because this person is pressuring so much, it feels like it's not good enough. It feels like my desire is low. So what my goal is.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So my goal really is to make this balance out a little bit more, to lower this one's expectation and understand that, like, what you're wanting 8 times a week is a lot for most.
Yeah.
And it's probably not going to happen without some severe changes in the relationship. And you know that relationship is about compromise, right? I can't ask the high desire person to come down here, right? Because this feels like hell. It feels like the bottom of the barrel. It feels like, you know, we're never going to bounce back from that. I'm also not expecting this person who's operating at a normal level to be all the way up here. That's going to be miserable for that person. So what we have to do is find a place in the middle that is a little bit more manageable, understanding that sometimes I'm going to have sex because my partner wants to have sex, not necessarily because not because I want to.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying put yourself in a situation where you're doing something for your partner that really feels icky to you. But I'm saying there are times in relationship across the board, sexually or otherwise, where we do things for our partner because we love them and we want them to understand that.
Yeah.
And reciprocate that. I'm not going to pressure you every time because I know my desire is higher than yours. So me asking you 8 times is a lot. Maybe I'll only ask you 4.
Yeah. And I think the hard part is to try to get past that. Like if you know your partner is not into it this time, you know, or whatever that you're doing, is getting past that. She is doing this just to please me because I want to have sex. But sometimes that's hard on your brain to be like, well, they don't really want to have sex with me. They're just doing it to please me, you know, and you got to get through that.
Yeah, because what you want to do, you don't want to do it because, well, they're asking me again. So I said no the last 3 times. Like, so I better say yes.
You really want to go, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And then that makes you not want it, right?
Exactly.
Because it's like, okay, you're not even into it. What you want is a connection. You want them to be into it. Yeah. So what we have to understand is this is a way, because this is what I'm hearing from you, right? This is a way that my partner feels loved.
Mm.
This is what he or she needs in order to feel loved. I already feel loved because he's on me every night.
Yeah.
He always lets me know that he wants me. And sometimes I say yes, sometimes I say no. But this is something that he needs in order to feel loved. And is that something that I want to gift him in this moment to make sure that he understands that I love and need him and want him. And I'm putting, and you do have to, in some way, put aside the fact that, you know what, I'm a little tired.
Yeah.
My mind is all over the place, but you know what? This man or this woman, this person sleeping next to me needs to know that I love them no matter what. And so I want to give that to them. I want to show that to him. This is my way of showing that.
Yes. And we are very grateful for that. And I wanted to ask you too about how the sexual dynamic changes over time with age, because I think that's a big thing too. You know what you know, as I get up in age, you know, I hear from people like where maybe like the sex between partners was great. There was a lot of oral sex. There was a lot going on, you know, in the relationship. And as you kind of get older, oral sex goes away. It's just, you know, missionary. It's like, you know, so what is like, can you talk about
everything changes.
Everything changes. Everything as changes. You get older.
Everything changes. Well, everything changes, period.
Yeah.
You know, life changes. Everything changes. So we can't expect the way that we had sex in our teens and 20s and 30s to look exactly the same as it does in our 60s, 70s, and 80s. Our bodies have changed. Our medical needs have changed. Our desires and priorities change. So because of that, this aspect of our life, there's no one aspect of our life that ever stays the same. It always evolves. It always changes. At 20, young and spry, no pain anywhere. You know, I can get into any and every position. At 65, I got bad knees. I need a hip replacement. My back gave out. I got in an accident last week and my shoulder sore. Like, so there has to be some adjustments. Yeah. Missionary may be the only thing.
Ow, ow.
Exactly. So we have to account for that and understand that my body has changed a lot. Maybe I'm not in my first marriage anymore. Maybe I'm in my third by the time I get older. And again, what partner number 1 liked, partner number 2 didn't, and number 3, we don't know. We're at an age where we both have to figure things out. So things will absolutely change and look different. I think this is where, again, communication is super important, because we all have different needs. There are going to be times where you're on a medication for some reason, and that causes a difference in your sexual functioning. Right. So many people are on medications that may cause like vaginal dryness or low sex desire, difficulty orgasming, erectile dysfunction. All of those things are going to change over time. And you may be on that medication for a period of time. Yeah. Or you may be on it for a long period of time, right? A short or a long period of time. And we have to be able to communicate those challenges with our partners and with our doctors, so that if there is a fix or a workaround that needs to happen, that we can do that so that we still feel like we're getting our sexual needs met.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, look, the big takeaway is there's no really one size fits all for sex, and the conversation with your partner.
That's why condoms come in different sizes.
There you go. And, look, and the conversation with your partner is super important. You got to have that Absolutely. Conversation. You got to be honest, and your sex life will be so much better. I do want to get into sex toys. When we worked together, you had a line of sex toys. I wanted to bring that up and say, do you still have the line? Are you still working with that? Has it evolved?
It has absolutely evolved. So the company is called Kinky Green. The website is shopkinkygreen.com. Now, if you go there now, you are not going to see sex toys. What you will see is CBD.
Oh, nice.
And so when we first, which is funny because I was looking at your interview with Montel, and I'm like, yes, because he's somebody that advocates a lot for THC and cannabis and things like that. But I'm going to go back a little bit to All About Sex, because this is a revelation that came about during that time. So at the time that we were doing All About Sex, Kinky Green was a store that was all about pleasure, and it was very much on brand. It was something that, because I was talking about sexuality a lot in my practice, sex toys was kind of an easy transition into a product-based business for me. It was not my own product, but what I would do is look for sustainable. I wanted people to have a sustainable sex life. I still do.
Sure.
To where they are using products that are good for them, that are good on or in their bodies, that wouldn't have any parabens or, things that, would really irritate them, just making sure that people were safe and healthy, but exploring their sexuality in ways that really meant, that provided for a sustainable future.
Yeah.
During my time at All About Sex, though, I had just had my baby at the time. She's 8 now. But I had just had Sky in August, auditioned for All About Sex in, I think, October, got the job, and we started filming in January.
Oh, wow.
So I was 5 months out. I think when I first made my first trip out to LA for the first taping, I was still like pumping at that time.
Oh, man.
And it was just it was a whirlwind. It was a whirlwind. New baby, new mom, never done this before, out of my mind, not sleeping, not like eating, like everything was just a mess. But I got this great new job that I really loved, and I'm out in LA every week. We were out there, I think, 3 consecutive weeks. And on that 3rd week, what I noticed, and at this time I still had Kinky Green, the first edition, where, I was doing the sex toys and everything, but I had so much going on in my life. And that was the one like cloud that was hanging over me, because I didn't feel like I was doing business right. I didn't feel like I was marketing enough. I didn't really understand, like there was a lot of moving parts, and I had too much going on with a new baby to really like handle it all. Right.
It's a lot.
It was a lot. It was a lot at the time. So what happened the 3rd week that we were out, it was kind of our last day of taping. I was walking to set, and I noticed that I was a little bit unsteady on my feet. Like I couldn't, I felt like my leg was dragging a little bit. And so what I did, I picked up my heels, and I walked barefoot to set, and I put my heels on when I sat down. And then when we were done taping, I took the shoes off, walked. And so I never said anything, right? I get back, I talk to my doctor, and I'm like, listen, I'm having this numbness and tingling in my leg. I don't know what this is. And so he brought out, the little it's like a roller thing. It's like a wheel with spikes on it, and then
like
they roll
massager.
it up and down your skin, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So he did that on my leg, and it felt like he was rubbing his finger across my leg. I didn't feel spiky at all, didn't feel prickly, anything. And I was like, I don't understand what this is. And he was like, I don't know what it is. So I went to, he sends me to a neurologist whom I love dearly. And he was like, I think I know, but I want you to take a whole bunch of tests,
Yeah.
So I go MRIs and, the CT scans and all of this, and come to find out what I had was a condition called thoracic myelitis, which was an inflammation in my spine. And where the inflammation was affecting how I was able to walk.
Oh.
And so it had gotten so bad right after that, where I was literally like dragging my leg. Like it moved from my left leg. And right now, as we sit here and talk today, I still have some level of tingling in my left leg. But it's nothing noticeable. I'm able to manage it.
Was
it
a symptom of the pregnancy? Did it happen afterwards?
Yeah. So what it was, inflammation was caused, it was a condition called thoracic myelitis. And I think you can have it anywhere in the spine, that inflammation, but where it was triggering that response in my legs. It was brought on by an autoimmune disorder that I did not know that I had, that was dormant, and that was triggered by like the pregnancy and childbirth.
Wow.
And so I did steroids for like 8 months to try and get it all under control. But in the midst of that happening, I'd say end of June that year, I had booked a show in LA that I was coming to kind of do some expert work on. I flew out to LA. Right before I flew out, though, I had been walking my daughter and my dog up and down the street, and I noticed I was getting out of breath. But I'm also like, I'm postpartum, been on steroids all this time, so I've gained all this weight, trying to do walk a dog and a baby in the hot sun in Georgia. And so I'm like, of course I'm out of breath. Okay, this is the last outdoor walk I'm going to do for the summer, right? I go get on this plane, fly to LA. Within the course of, I think, 3 to 4 days, flew to LA from Atlanta, back to Atlanta to Turks and Caicos, because I had a speaking engagement there, and then back to Atlanta. All this time I'm having shortness of breath, shortness of breath. And I called the neurologist while I was out in LA, and I said, listen, I don't think the steroids are working. He referred me to a pulmonologist, who then told me, I can't see you for another month. I'm telling you I can't breathe, and you're telling me you won't see me for another month because you don't have anything.
Man, it's crazy.
Yeah. So long story short, I came back, and I almost passed out carrying my daughter up the stairs. And my husband was out for a run that day, and he came back, and I was like, I got to go to the hospital. When I got to the hospital, they immediately took me back, and they said, you have so many blood clots in your lungs. And I was like, well, me, how many are there? I need to know what's going on. And they were like, sis, we stopped counting at 6.
No way.
They stopped counting. There were so many. I don't know how I got through all of those flights. I don't know, it was so much. So I say all that to say, as I'm sitting in the hospital bed, I was in the hospital for about a week. As I'm sitting there, I was like, what can I eliminate from my life that is stressing me out? What do I need to let go of in this moment that is a cloud hanging over me that's too much? Like, because clearly I'm doing a whole bunch of stuff, and I don't feel excellent. I don't feel like I'm crushing it at certain things, and certain things have my attention and other things don't. And Kinky Green was the thing. Kinky Green was the thing that was hanging over my head, that I didn't feel like I wasn't working at an optimal level at the time. Yeah. So I was like, okay, so I called my web designer. I was like, take this shit down, like do whatever you have to do, because I can't do this. I cannot do this. And so I held on to the URL. I held on to the Instagram page, and all of that, just didn't do anything with Kinky Green for years. And I think part of it was pandemic, but part of it was just like, I've always wanted to rebrand it in a way that really felt, that I felt more connected to.
I mean, there's no better
I was
time
connected
than
to
now,
it.
Right. It's like,
exactly, with CBD. It was something that, and my husband is a chiropractor, and we really wanted to develop a pain balm for him. Like, he didn't want to continue to sell other people's products in his in his office, I wanted to develop things like candles and tinctures and gummies and all of those things. I wanted to do that and still circle back to original Kinky Green at some point, but like it just all made sense. And Kinky Green was the perfect name.
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
So that's what we did. Yeah. So we rebranded. We are a CBD company. We sell gummies. We sell pain balm. We sell massage oil candles that are infused with CBD that are amazing.
That's great.
Yeah. And I hand make those myself. So they're, sometimes they're few and far between because mama's got like 15 jobs.
Oh, I know.
So I make the candles when I can't.
but that's amazing. Yeah. It's a great business to have in this time because it's just, it's accepted now, where when we were doing All About Sex, I don't even think marijuana was legal at that point.
I don't think it was. Yeah. I don't think it was in Cali.
Yeah.
Not that everybody wasn't using it.
Oh, no, for sure.
I mean, I think but I don't think it was legal. And CBD, the great thing about CBD is that it's federally legal.
Yes.
So that can be shipped anywhere. THC, you can't necessarily do that with products if you're not shipping to a state that is legal. But with CBD, you can ship it.
I just tried the other day. I just tried this balm. I'm looking at over here because my knee. I've been running my whole life, and just my knees are getting to the point where it hurts now when I run. But I put it on there, and man, it just like the pain went away. It was like, I don't know if they're putting some secret sauce in there and just saying, oh, hey, it's
the CBD. It's a secret sauce, baby.
Man, it worked really well. And I was so surprised. It's amazing. But it's expensive.
It's amazing. And topically, it can get there topically. And that's one of the beautiful things I like about topical CBD products. When you put it on with a full spectrum with a full spectrum CBD product, you're getting less than 0.3% THC in there. Right. But that little bit really does help to penetrate. And because it's a topical product, it's not going into the bloodstream. So if you're somebody that's concerned about like taking a drug test and am I going to fail? You will if you ingest it.
Right.
But topical products, you won't, because they're not going into the bloodstream, but you are getting the relief benefits and the support for like muscles and joints.
Yeah, no,
CBD is
I'm
wonderful.
Super excited to see how these products develop and how they grow and how we can use them to help us because I don't like taking traditional medication. I don't like putting stuff in my body that is made by pharma, but the CBD, man, I'm so bummed that I haven't tried it.
And we're seeing so much good work that's being done, like for veterans and for people with PTSD 100%. And anxiety, and there's so many different ways that it can work for you. So I just encourage people to, really have an open mind to try it for themselves. CBD is a great entryway into cannabis use because you're not getting that psychological high that people are afraid of with traditional marijuana. So I just think it's a really good clean.
The question, does CBD help you with your sex life?
It can.
Really?
It can. So when we think, and that's how I'm going to weave it back into the original Kinky Green. So a lot of things can help, right? So when we think about relaxation, CBD is great for relaxation. CBD is great in relaxation. We need that for orgasm. We need that for getting into the mood. Sometimes we need that CBD to help with relaxation and focus. Sometimes what is in our way when we're trying to be intimate with our partners is everything that's going on in our heads. We're thinking about a project at work. We're thinking about dishes that need to be washed. We're thinking about the kids' lunches. We're thinking about all the things that are on my calendar. CBD kind of helps to quiet the mind in a way where you can really focus on what you want to focus on.
That's so true.
One of the things that I love about the massage oil candles that we use is that it tackles so many of the senses, engages so many of the senses. It's not just something that you sit and you look at and it smells good. That's great because it's visually stimulating. The olfactory senses are getting engaged. But when we start to light the candle, blow it out, pour the wax out, because it has the essential oils in it. It has the CBD in it. So now you have this warm, erotic massage, right? Oh, yeah. So it's another way to be intimate with your partners. There's so many. Yeah, I know. I'll send you a candle.
All right. Yeah, please do.
Send you. Yes. No, they're fabulous. That's like my favorite thing about it. If I could give you like the two favorite products, is probably the pain balm because that works It works for like everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that hot sauce commercial. You put that shit on
you put it on everything.
And then the candles are just, I make them with love. I make them myself, and they're so bomb because you get this beautiful fragrance in the room. You also have this wonderful connection with your partner in doing the erotic massage. So my husband loves the candles.
Yeah. And where can people get those?
ShopKinkyGreen.com.
That's awesome.
They can get that there.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. And more sexual stuff is coming down the pike. Don't you worry.
Oh, I'm sure it will. You got your, I know your ideas are cooking.
I have a flood of ideas at all times. Yes.
And the last thing I wanted to kind of talk with you, because I don't want to keep you here all day. I appreciate your time, but the on-set sex coordinator, because this is something new to me that I really haven't heard a lot about. But I think it's a brilliant idea that, that Hollywood movies and TV shows are now hiring sex coordinators to do what?
Well, so I work as an intimacy coordinator in television and film, and this came about. So this was a bit of a pivot for me too. I was working on a development deal. I had a development deal with NBC. I think I can say that. Yeah. Now that it's over. I had a development deal for a couple of years, and I was kind of tied up for a couple of years with NBC. Couldn't really work on or develop another project. So in the meantime, while I was hanging out there, I decided I really wanted to figure out how to gain a little bit more control over my career. Like, as you know, I really love doing things in front of the camera, but it's always at the whim of whomever is hiring. Sure. And at the behest of whoever is over the network. And, I may be great, but that doesn't mean that they need or want me for that particular thing that I really want to do. So I wanted to find a way to learn more about what was going on behind the scenes, so that if I ever wanted to create my own thing, I had, some more knowledge behind that. But I also wanted to put my skills to use while I'm waiting on this to get hired for some other gig. And so because I'm a psychotherapist, because I'm a sex therapist, because I have that set experience already, intimacy coordination seemed like a really natural fit for me. And what that is I come in to a production where there may be scenes with intimacy or nudity or sexuality, and they really need someone to kind of consult with them to help choreograph those scenes, to talk with the actors about what they're willing to do or not willing to do, what they're agreeing to show or not show, get those things over to legal so that we can get those in their writers, so that when they get on set, the day that they're filming, they're not worried about being asked to do something that they never knew they were going to do.
So important.
They're not feeling like they're being taken advantage of. They understand that they have the right to change their mind, that they can say no and still have a job. I think that was one of the biggest fears for people before intimacy coordinators became a thing, is that if I say no, if I say I'm not going to take my top off, if I say I'm not going to do X, Y, and Z on camera, then I'm going to be out of a job because another actor can do it. And so what intimacy coordinators do is kind of act as a buffer between the production and the actor, and really advocate for the actor so that they can say, here is what I'm willing to do and what I'm not willing to do. And you have someone there that can really advocate for you and make sure that happens. And ultimately, I think it works out beautifully for productions. It works out really for everybody, because people feel protected. People feel like they don't have to worry about someone asking them these weird questions and weird requests. I can just come in, do my job. I'm not blindsided. I know exactly what's expected of me, and they know what to expect. And I can just come in and do what I need to do. Yeah. It's difficult work. Like, when you think about not only having to remember lines and blocking and positioning, but I also have to take my clothes off and not act like I'm standing in a room full of people that don't know me and I don't know, naked. Like, it's a lot of pressure. And so if we can take that, that's a little bit of that pressure off.
Yeah. I think it's brilliant. I think, that it's about time that, that the TV and film industry hires people to do that. And I think it's a great, it's just great for the actors. It's great for everybody involved. It's great for, also so that, like you said, there's no uncomfortability. There's no, legal issues. There's just such a benefit to it. So that's amazing.
Yeah,
that you're
there's
doing
no
that.
reason not to have it. Yeah, and I really do love the work. I feel like it's a really good caveat for me. I've also started doing some sensitivity work as well. I'm on a production right now where, in addition to the intimacy stuff that we've had to do, they also are using my mental health background, which is great. So I'm getting to check in with not only our background actors and actors, but also the crew. We're tackling some really heavy material in this current production, and a lot of emotional stuff is coming up for everybody, not just our actors, but our crew as well.
Really?
And so, yeah. And so, just being in production, sometimes you have to take something 15 times, it's not like you can. So let's use this as an example, right? If someone in this climate, today's climate, right, is calling an actor as part of the script, the N-word, in a derogatory way, that first take, I might be able to, okay, that's fine.
Right.
But after that happens 10, 15, 20 takes, gets a little uncomfortable. People start to feel like maybe that last time you said it, you had a little bit of sting on it. Man. Like you're starting to enjoy this a little too much. So I have to constantly, check in with my actors and what are you feeling right now? What do we need? Do you need to take a break? Can we do something to calm your anxiety in this moment? Because this scene is really heavy. To allow people, I've had ADs cry on my shoulder because material has been so heavy, dynamic and heavy from them. But the show must go on. We have to keep going. This time is money. Yeah. So being able to help get them together so that they can do their jobs, but also take care and hold space for them in a very real way has really been a blessing as well.
No, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. What a great addition to the set. You're amazing in everything you do. You're just amazing. I love talking to you. I love
talking to you as well.
Is there anything else that we should let the masses know about sex or sex conversation or anything we didn't cover?
Just have them. Have as many conversations as you possibly can. Be as open as you possibly can. Yeah, well, I mean, that too, if you're so inclined. But, just making sure we're having those conversations with people, especially those that we love, because we want to make sure that you receive pleasure as well as giving pleasure, that pleasure is the name of the game and that we continue to do that. I'd also like to just kind of throw out there, I'm doing this partially as accountability for myself, right? If I say it, then it has to happen. Yeah. I am on the verge of launching my own podcast, Intimate Details with Dr. Tiff.
I love it.
And that has been something I've been running from for several years. But I'm going to make it happen. It is happening in 2023. I'm very excited about it, super nervous about it, but it's something that I think needs to be done. And so that we can have more conversations like the one we've had today, and just learning about different people and how they got to where they are and what they're doing. And
no, 100%. And I will be an avid listener. I think, as I said at the top of this podcast, it's such an important subject and it's such a misunderstood subject that the more clarity that we can have on sex, the better it is for us and the better we'll feel having it, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's like, I started this.
Better sex doesn't just happen.
Right.
It's something you actively have to participate in.
That's right. It takes work.
Like it doesn't just happen. It's work, it's communication, it's checking in. Again, things change. Things aren't always the same. So it's a constant, anything that you want, you really do have to work at, whether that's your relationship, your job, your career, your finances, any of that. None of it just comes to us. We have to work at it. And sex is no different. So put the time in, put the work in.
100%.
And you will see the fruits of your labor.
Have sex. Enjoy it. Enjoy it.
Yes.
Listen, well, thank you, Dr. Tiff. I'm used to calling you Dr. Tiff. Do we go by Dr. Tiff now or is it Dr. Tiffanie?
No, it's still Dr. Tiff. I really enjoy Dr. Tiff.
Okay.
Intimate Details with Dr. Tiff is the name of the pod. I think that we're going to stick with that. I love calling you Slade. I think one of the first times that I met you, and this is what I remember telling you at Steve Harvey. I don't remember telling you this at All About Sex. I'm going to check.
Okay.
Let's see on that. is that if we ever had a son, I wanted to name him Slade. And I knew that before I met you, but that was one of the things I think I told you. It's like,
I love that.
And so I've always felt such a connection to you. For some weird reason other than your name, I don't know, but I thank you so much for always staying in touch with me and keeping up with me and allowing me to keep up with you. And I just so appreciate your friendship and just you being who you are, who you've always been. And it's just been a joy and a pleasure to watch your career evolve as well.
Oh, thank you. Well, somebody very smart once told me, surround myself with smarter people than me and better people than me. So that's why I constantly call you. I do. I love you, and I appreciate you always supporting me. And, I hope to do many more things with you in the future.
I'll be calling you. I'm going to call you for this podcast.
No, please do. I would love to. Anything
you'll answer the phone.
I will answer the phone.
Okay.
100%.
I appreciate it. Thank you
all right,
so
Dr.
much
Tiff.
for everything.
All right. Thank you for everything.